Hi, Mr. B here again, and today's topic is special education law. If you arrived at this podcast expecting to see an attorney explaining these laws, I have bad news for you. I'm not an attorney. I'm simply a special education teacher who will talk about the laws that apply to students with disabilities. If you have been following this self-advocacy series, you should remember me saying that you have rights as a student with a disability. And there are laws, 3 of them, that grant you those rights. And the first one I'd like to talk about is the Americans with Disabilities Act. This law was passed in 1990, and it is designed to guarantee people with disabilities equal opportunity to such things as employment, public access, and transportation. A few weeks ago I watched a movie called The Music Within, which chronicles the man who helped ADA become law. Let's watch a little clip.
Funny how things happen. Only in hindsight do you realize how something can change your entire life.
I need volunteers to stay behind. This is your chance to be a hero.
I always wanted to be a hero.
You're coming! Ah! Ah!
I was deaf.
I can't authorize government funds to send you to college. You're deaf.
What? It's a deaf joke.
We cannot plan the events that shape us.
Look like you have a coke problem. May I?
You better wash your hands. This may be contagious. You want to sit down, Einstein?
Yeah, sure.
We cannot predict the moments that define us.
I think you two need to leave. You're making the other customers very uncomfortable.
He's very sorry for turning your customers' stomachs. That's...
The actor doing the talking is portraying Richard Pimentel, who became deaf during the Vietnam War and returned to see the injustices being done to persons with disabilities of all types. In the restaurant scene, the two are arrested simply because of his friend's disability, and the movie ends with the two. Alright, I won't give away the end of the movie. Go ahead and watch it. I think you'll enjoy it. The Americans with Disabilities Act may or may not be part of your education process, but it is a major piece of legislation that you should be aware of, especially after you leave high school and begin your adult life. The next law you should be aware of is Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. That law ensures that all students with a disability get an appropriate education. It grants accommodations to those whose disability prevents them from being able to participate in activities that all other students can take part in. And it's usually used for students who do not qualify for special education services. And let me give you an example of what type of student that might be. It could be a student who is suffering from an illness and is undergoing treatment for that illness. Let's say a child has cancer and spends a year undergoing treatment. A school may write a 504 plan to ensure that the student still gets an education while he or she is sick. The third law that affects students with disabilities, and this is the big one, is IDEA, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. This law guarantees you many rights as a student with a disability. The first thing it does is it gives you the right to an individual education plan, or IEP. An IEP is a document that every student in special education has, and it describes where they are at in terms of their education, outlines goals for the year, tells what accommodations or modifications they might receive, and provides many other details about the student and his or her special needs. IDEA also guarantees a student with a disability the right to a free and appropriate education, and ensures that the student is entitled to be taught in the least restrictive environment. IDEA was passed in 1975 under the name of the Education for All Handicapped Children Act. Before that, only 1 in 5 children with disabilities received a public education. I always think of my brother when I think about this act because he went to high school back in the 1970s and he really struggled. Looking back, it would be hard to argue that he didn't have a learning disability, and yet he received no accommodations or special help. He did graduate, and he went on to become a very successful businessman who owns his own company. But I wonder how his life and his educational experience might have been different if IDEA would have been around back then. You may be wondering, why should I care about these laws? And you should care because these laws guarantee your right to an education that allows you to be successful. They also give you the right to accommodations, which will help you be successful. Now, this has been a very brief introduction to special education law, so I wanted to leave you with a resource, and that resource is Wright's Law. Let's take a look at that website. Here we are at wrightslaw.com, and I like this website because it has a lot of information about many topics. Now, some of it is free, some of it you have to pay for, but I think there's enough free information here to make it worthwhile for you. So if we go down to this part, we can look at the topics, which is where I generally go to find information. And here we have, if we click on this, this is a page on the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act of 2004, which was the most recent reauthorization of the law. If we go back to the home page and we go down, we can look at self-advocacy, and it talks about what is self-advocacy, which we've already done, why is it important, but it also gives you a whole list of resources that you can use for self-advocacy. So I encourage you to go to this website to learn more about special education law and special education. In concluding this podcast, I would like to stress to you how important these laws are to you, and how many people before you struggled so that you could have the opportunities that you have now. This is Mr. B. I thank you for watching.